Hi first grade, it's Mrs. Blevins here to do another read aloud story with you this week. I found a cool informational story called How People Learn to Fly. So you are going to hear a lot of scientific pieces in this read aloud, so pay attention to those facts that you're hearing, but really our main focus is going to be making connections. So any pages where you hear about gliders or kites or birds, I want you to really focus and really listen in on those pages. Those are going to be important for you later on when you're completing your writing assignment. I also want you to focus on the pages that speak about engines, what engines are, and what their purpose is. So, how people learn to fly. When you see a bird flying, do you dream about flying too? Do you run with your arms out, imagining that you're soaring among the clouds? Do you make paper airplanes? Do you fly kites? If you do, you aren't alone. For thousands of years, people have dreamed of being able to fly. So that word that they spoke about, soaring, if a bird is soaring, a bird is flying. They watched birds and bats soar. There's that word again. They imagined people and other animals that could fly and told stories about them. They designed machines that they thought would be able to fly. They had many ideas. As they tried each new idea, they learned a lot. So they were putting together sketches of things that they thought might work, things that they thought might be able to take flight. They learned about gravity. Gravity is the force that keeps everything on the Earth's surface. Remember, we spoke about gravity when we talked about the planets. Because of gravity, things have weight. If there were no gravity, people, dogs, cats, and everything else would just go floating off into space. Gravity keeps us on the ground, even if we would rather be flying. So here it's showing you what would happen if there was no gravity. Everything would be floating around, and here we stay pulled down to Earth because of gravity. People also learned about air. Air is made of tiny particles called molecules. When you walk or run, you push through air molecules. They push back on you too, even though you don't usually feel the push unless the wind is blowing. People learned that the wind could push a kite into the sky. And these little pop-up boxes say the kite tail and string keep the kite at the right angle to the wind. The wind moves over the kite and lifts it up. So it's showing us how a kite works in that picture. All right. When air molecules push back on a moving object, that is a force called drag. You can feel drag for yourself. Hold out your arms. Now spin around. Feel the push of air on your arms and your hands. That's drag. Like gravity, drag works against objects that are trying to fly. So you can try this little mini experiment at home so you can feel drag for yourself. Kites were useful and fun, but people wanted more. They wanted to fly like birds. Birds had something that kites didn't. Birds had wings. So this is something new that they're paying attention to. Kites did not have wings, but the birds do. People made wings and strapped them to their arms. They flapped their arms but couldn't fly. They built gliders, light aircraft with wings. Some didn't work, but some did. This little text box says, in England, Monk Ellimer broke his legs in AD 1010 after a 15-second flight. So a long, long time ago, that was a monk trying to make flight happen. And here is a glider, a picture of a glider so you can see. All right, the gliders that worked best had special wings. These wings were arched on both the top and the bottom. The air pulled the wings from above and pushed the wings from below. When the wings went up, so did the glider. Arched wings help create a force called lift. Lift is the force that keeps birds and gliders in the air. So here it's showing us a little diagram. Bird, dragonfly, glider, and airplane. Those are different wing shapes. And then over here, it's cool that they've included so many pictures and diagrams so we can really see what they're talking about, because they're mentioning a lot of things that we might not totally understand in this story. Most gliders have long, thin wings. The wings create enough lift to carry the aircraft and its passengers. So passengers are people who ride on a plane. If you get on a plane and you travel somewhere, you are considered a passenger. Gliders usually ride currents of air the same way a hawk soars. Gliders are very light, and long wings and air currents can give them enough lift to fly. But to carry more than just a passenger or two, an aircraft needs a lot more lift. So the question is, how do you create more lift? Giving us something to think about. An engine is the answer. An engine is a machine that changes energy into movement. The forward movement that an airplane needs to fly is called thrust. More thrust makes an airplane move faster. Moving faster creates more lift. And with more lift, an airplane can carry more weight. So an aircraft with an engine can carry passengers or cargo. So we have a couple different diagrams on this page where they're showing us the arrows representing the thrust, and then the propeller, and then it says the engine turns the propeller, it tucks back into the plane for gliding. So there's that propeller, arrows showing us the thrust. And then over on this side, bicycle chains to propellers, the radiator line, the fuel line, the Wright brothers aircraft engine. So we are going to learn about the Wright brothers. They are an important piece of this story about flight. In 1903, the Wright brothers figured out how to get wings and an engine to work together in order to give an aircraft enough thrust to fly. They made the first powered flight at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Since then, people have made airplanes that can fly faster than sound can travel. They have made airplanes that can fly all around the world without even stopping. So here are the Wright brothers taking out their glider and testing it. I want you to notice, look at this guy, how he is positioned in the glider. They practiced on a beach, so if they crashed, then it would be a safer place to land. And over here it says supersonic fighter jet is up here, and down here this is the Voyager. So they're talking about airplanes that can travel long, long, long distances without having to stop for fuel. Today, thousands and thousands of people travel in airplanes every day. People really have learned how to fly. Notice this being on the same page as this. All right, and then at the end of the story, it just kind of gives us some more facts about flight, because that's pretty interesting to learn how planes were constructed and put together and what the process was for figuring how to make flight possible. So I hope you enjoyed this story. Now I would like for you to move on to the writing portion and answering the questions. Thank you for joining us today.